I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, and so now we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. It is a lovely Wednesday, and we're starting here a little bit early because it is my brother Joey's birthday. Happy birthday, Joey. And so we're going to go celebrate my brother. It's pizza and wings night and celebrating Joey. He's turning 37, man. Can you believe that? All right, so we're going to go celebrate him. Are the tubes working? Looks like they are. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice Attorney General, the man who is in charge of so much of this country and all the political partisan prosecutions that we cover here. He showed up in Congress today, and we're going to go through it quite a bit. I've got a bunch of clips, as you can see here, and I really stuck to a couple topics, things related to David Weiss, Hunter Biden, the double standards in the DOJ, stuff that we talk a lot about here. But it really was an interesting day today. If you missed it, Merrick Garland also was questioned about attacking, Catholics and all sorts of other issues, abortion stuff. And so there was just a lot to it. But we're going to hit the highlights for some of the topics that we've talked about. We're going to hit his opening statement, just about a minute of it, because I know we can only take so much. Then we've got Jim Jordan, we've got Thomas Massie, and we heard from Thomas Massie live today on our members only stream. It was very nice to hear him. He was fired up today. Then I want to go through the full breakdown from Representative Russell Fry. He got a full 5 minutes, and he just kind of walks us through the timeline, and so I wanted to go through that. Representative Tom McClintock compares the double standards between Jack Smith and David Weiss, and then we've got this big clip from Merrick Garland. He's a smart guy. They were going to put him on the Supreme Court, and suddenly he has an answer to a question. I don't recall. Yeah, give me a break. You don't recall talking to the FBI about Hunter Biden? Nobody believes that, but that was his answer in Congress, so we'll go into that. Then we had an update on the Hunty docket, and so we'll talk about what was filed. Two different documents dropped on the docket. First, Hunter wants to appear virtually for his arraignment. We know that he was in person the last couple times he was in court, especially when the plea deal fell apart. But now he doesn't want to have to physically go there, and so his lawyers sent in a motion to appear virtually. And the way it actually happened was kind of funny. We'll talk about it. But they submitted that, and then the DOJ, the government prosecutors, actually objected to the whole thing. So they're saying, nope, you don't get to appear virtually. This is not a misdemeanor. And so we'll see you in court. And we'll read through both of those. Then I want to spend a little time on some reaction to, the Hunter stuff, because Jim Jordan brought up 4 facts about Hunter today in the Judiciary Committee hearing that included Merrick Garland. And we talked earlier this week about Hunter suing the IRS because he's so victimized and aggrieved that he needs repercussions. He needs damages out of the IRS to the tune of $1,000 for the activities, the actions of the IRS whistleblowers. And so he's suing them. We've got a clip from Garrett Ziegler. Sorry, that's the other Garrett Ziegler, who is the author of MarcoPoloUSA.org's report on the Biden laptop. Joseph Ziegler is the man on the screen. Both exposing the Biden crime family in different methodologies. I don't think they're related, though. But Joseph Ziegler, whistleblower, he was on with Jake Tapper and communicating with him. And then James Comer says, yeah, this is absolutely whistleblower witness intimidation. They're suing to try to stop other people from blowing the whistle. So we'll look at both those motions, both those filings, and we'll also see what some representatives have to say about it. Before we wrap up the day, hearing from Stephen Sund. Stephen Sund is the former Capitol Police chief of police, and he testified in front of Congress yesterday. And this was some good stuff. And I've got 2 segments that I want to go through with you here today. One is his opening statement, which is where he describes, really in 5 minutes or less, the entire deal, the whole basis for why he's there. Very powerful testimony. We've talked about this guy before. He was basically fired. They asked him to resign. He walks us through the timeline. So he requested National Guard service at 12:58, but it went to the Sergeant at Arms, which is this guy, Paul Irving, at 12:58. He got the FU button, the red button, don't ignore, ignore, ignore. Then at 2:09, they finally got approval 71 minutes later. So we keep hearing this stupid story about how Trump was fiddling while Rome burned or whatever. Trump was in the room next to the Oval Office watching TV. Liz Cheney. And Pelosi was apparently doing the same thing. I mean, she was waddling around for 71 minutes. Who knows what she was doing? Firing shots of vodka, celebrating with her daughter or something. I don't know. But she also called for Son's resignation right after the fact. And we're going to listen to that clip because it's wild to listen to these clips in hindsight. It's just like we're watching a movie, like some bizarre movie of just psychopaths. So we're going to listen to that one. And then we'll take a look, just as a reminder, about Stephen Son's resignation letter, which he sent over the day after, January 7th, because he was made to be the scapegoat of this entire operation that they allowed to happen, even though he did everything basically perfectly. We've also got a clip from Massie. He was grilling Merrick Garland on this in Congress today. And we've also got Stephen Son's book, which, as I said, I can't recommend enough, so I put it on here. Buy his book, right? If there's anything you can do to support this guy who is testifying heroically to great cost at his own career, that's one thing you can do. Buy his book. Courage Under Fire, Stephen Son, available everywhere. So quite good. All right, now we have a lot to get to today, my friends, and we had a very nice members-only morning stream today. Talked about all sorts of goodies. We actually got to listen to some of this hearing this morning in real time, and that's always fun to do. And so if you want to join us as a member on one of our platforms, watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to do it. We'd love to see you over there. We've got a great members-only community. You can also join to get access to the private Telegram group where the chat never ends if you want to just continue to hang out. Private Telegram group is available for all of our members. If you're a YouTube member, you can get access to the Telegram link. Just navigate over to the community section and you can find the link there. Also, you can sign up for our daily newsletter. So if you miss one of the segments, if you can only catch the first hour of the show and you're like, I wonder what happened next, and you don't want to see it, boom, delivered to your inbox. Easy. RobertGovea.com. Sign up for the newsletter. You can get all the show reports. All the videos are summarized and translated into text so you can read them at your leisure. And of course, you can also access this entire mind map, all of the documents, everything that you see on your screen, you can access at robertgovea.com. Now, it's important. This is very important for me today. I'm going to go celebrate with Joey. We're going to have pizza, wings, and birthday cake. You know what's not going to be there? Vegetables. Well, maybe there'll be some celery sticks with the wings, maybe some carrots too, but that doesn't really count. Instead, we all want to eat healthy, so I'm going to double up on my field of greens. How sick are you, though, of all the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets and all that? You know, we've all been there. We've all done them. They just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. None of that stuff works, but eating well does. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But instead, vegetables and fruit, I know we're not fans of those, man. It takes a lot of work to prepare those every day. You got to go to the grocery store. It goes bad instantly. Don't worry about it. Instead, Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, woo, woo, you're looking good. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. You can save 15% off at checkout with code Robert so you can get your real organic superfood. And let's not forget, my friends, the vegetables, they want to be eaten. That was very loud. They want to be eaten. That's why they're here. And they'll help you feel bursting like with green energy, the good kind, and it's just all sorts of goodness. Fieldofgreens.com. Promo code Robert. All right. Now let's get into it. Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland hauled in front of Congress today to answer some questions. And boy, do we have a lot of them. We've been following all of the partisan prosecutions from this guy's office for a long time now. And we have questions, is he really in charge? Does he know much of anything that's going on? And certainly you can be the judge. But he got a lot of questions today. We're going to go through them all and paying particular attention to the Hunter Biden investigation, the David Weiss cover-up, and the double standards that exist in his office, all that's being done on behalf of Joe Biden, his boss. So we'll start with Garland's opening statement and then finish with one of the most interesting clips of the day, which is where this guy who is so smart, was almost on the Supreme Court, now is the Attorney General, suddenly doesn't recall, gets asked a question about Hunter and whether he contacted the FBI and put any pressure or talked to anybody over there. And they say, do you have any recollection of this? Who did you talk to? I don't recall. Well, yeah, Hunter Biden is a very forgettable character, right? Only happens to be the president's son. So this is Garland in his opening statement. Just a short excerpt here, just a quick 40 seconds. I know there's only so much we can take.
Job is to pursue justice without fear or favor. Our job is not to do what is politically convenient. Our job is not to take orders from the president, from Congress, or from anyone else about who or what to criminally investigate.
But you do.
As the president himself has.
But they do. Okay, there's articles, even mainstream sources have confirmed it, that the White House was upset that Merrick Garland wasn't putting pressure on everybody, and then he did. And suddenly Trump gets prosecuted. Very convenient. So it was Biden being upset about it that led to what many suspect to be a change.
Said, and I reaffirm today, I am not the president's lawyer.
You act like it.
I will add, I am not Congress's prosecutor. The Justice Department works for the American people. Our job is to follow the facts and the law.
You should.
And that is what we do.
No, you do not. You should, but you do not. You make up a bunch of facts, and in some cases, you make up the law too. So that's his opening statement. Now, that was in front of Congress, and we had a couple questions right out of the gate. We'll do a couple short excerpts, and then we'll jump into this long inquisition from Russell Fry, which was quite enlightening. But here is Jim Jordan asking Merrick Garland about David Weiss. Why has the story changed with David Weiss? David Weiss, of course, the special prosecutor who was, before becoming the special prosecutor, just a regular prosecutor who was a so-called Trump-appointed prosecutor, but then who brought a plea deal that granted Hunter Biden blanket immunity for basically all of his crimes and concocted it in a way that a judge said was inappropriate, didn't accept it, the whole thing derailed, and they gave him a promotion to now be an actual special prosecutor because he's done such a bang-up job. This is Jim Jordan saying, what the heck happened with this guy?
Quote, Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. That was your response, Attorney General, to Senator Grassley's question on March 1st, 2023. You just referenced it when Mr. Bishop was questioning you. Only problem is he'd already been turned down by the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, Mr. Graves. So he didn't have full authority, did he?
I had an extended conversation with Senator Grassley at the time. We briefly touched on the Section 515 question and how that process went. I've never been suggested.
My point's real simple, Mr. Garland. You said he had complete authority, but he'd already been turned down. He wanted to bring an action in the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Attorney there said, no, you can't. And then you go tell the United States Senate under oath that he has complete authority.
I'm going to say again that no one had the authority to turn him down. They could refuse to partner with him. They could not.
You can use whatever language. Refuse to partner is turning down.
Well, it's not the same under a well-known Justice Department practice.
Here's why this.
It's not the same according to us. No. He didn't turn down anybody. No other attorneys turned him down, Jim. In the DOJ, we call it refusing to partner, and it's a different thing. Well, the consequence of either one of those things, or whatever he wants to call it, is David Weiss can't bring charges in those jurisdictions. Doesn't matter what you call it. But do you see what they do? No. There was no rejection at all. No, it was just a refusal to partner. Because they are about as dishonest as it comes. Now, Merrick Garland was being very coy and sneaky today, and Massie let him have it, said, look, I know that you sit here and you tell us that you're not the president's attorney and you don't have to respond to Congress and all of these things. And you can sit there behind the executive branch and say my separation of powers and blah, blah, blah. But we fund your butts and we have a constitutional duty as well to do oversight. And when we used to live in a country where there was at least a fiction that we were trying to work in the interest of the American people rather than just eviscerate your political opponents, which is where we're at. And it feels like there has absolutely been a change this year because we got 4 indictments in 4.5 months against one person, one political figure in this entire country. So we're seeing the entire structure change. But historically, the idea would be that both branches would say, okay, we're going to fight over this stuff, but eventually we'll comply to a small degree. That's not happening anymore at all. And Massie is now blasting Garland over that.
You're citing the Constitution. I'm going to cite it. It's our constitutional duty to do oversight. Now, in that video, that was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago. When I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many.
I
don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again, that you don't know that there were any?
I have no personal knowledge of this matter. I think what I said the last time.
You've had 2 years to find out. And the day, by the way, that was in reference to Ray Epps. And yesterday you indicted him. Isn't that a wonderful coincidence? On a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, you're sending grandmas to prison. You're putting people away for 20 years for merely filming. Some people weren't even there yet. You got the guy on video who's saying go into the Capitol. He's directing people to the Capitol before the speech ends. He's at the site of the first breach. You've got all the goods on him, 10 videos, and it's an indictment for a misdemeanor? The American public isn't buying it. I yield the balance of my time to Chairman Jordan.
May I answer the question?
I'm going to ask you one now. We'll let the gentleman.
Yeah.
Go ahead, but
In discovery, in the cases that were filed with respect to January 6, the Justice Department prosecutors provided whatever information they had about the question that you're asking. With respect to Mr. Epps, the FBI has said that he was not an employee or informant of the FBI. Mr. Epps has been charged, and there's a proceeding, I believe, going on today on that subject.
the charge is a joke. I yield to the Chairman.
The time the gentleman has expired. The chair recognizes the.
The charge is a joke because there are double standards for everybody. Hunter Biden gets a little slap on the wrist. Ray Epps gets a little slap on the wrist. Meanwhile, grandmas are in the gulags because of what they have done. So we continue to investigate. This is Representative Russell Fry. Of course, this is the Judiciary Committee hearing, and he's going to walk through the entire timeline here with Merrick Garland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a slide up here, and I'll start. In October or March of 22, Mr. Weiss was denied the ability to bring charges against Hunter Biden in the District of Columbia. In April of that same year, you testified before the Senate Appropriations Committee that Mr. Weiss was free to run the investigation without interference from the DOJ. According to the IRS whistleblower, there was a meeting in October of 22 where Mr. Weiss said that he was not the deciding official on whether charges were filed. And we know that because we have handwritten notes from the IRS whistleblowers that was confirmed in an email to people in the meeting. Later in January, Mr. Weiss was denied the ability to bring charges again against Hunter Biden in the Central District of California. You testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee in March of this year that he had full authority. That Weiss confirmed that to us in a letter in June, that he had been granted, quote, full authority over this matter. But then he kind of backed up. In June 30th, he said, well, just kidding. My charging authority is geographically limited to my home district.
Delaware.
In Delaware. And of course, you appoint him as special counsel. So why the heck has his story changed so many times over the course of these investigations?
Yeah, Mayor, how come?
Congressman, I've seen all the 3 letters. I've read them quite carefully. They are all consistent with each other. And I urge everyone watching this on television or anyone who's interested to look at those 3 letters. They are not inconsistent with each other, and there's no change in the story.
So, but you agree that he had, and you've said this publicly, that he had ultimate authority prior to the appointment of special counsel.
I've explained this repeatedly here. I've explained this in another proceeding. I said that Mr. Weiss would have the authority to bring a case in any jurisdiction in which he wanted to, and Mr. Weiss has confirmed that he would have that authority. I explained that if he had to bring a case in another jurisdiction, as a matter of mechanics, it would require me me or a delegatee of mine to sign a 515 order. That is very common.
But Mr. Attorney General,
and there was nothing stopping that from happening.
Forgive me for a second, though, but when you say you have ultimate, when he wrote a letter on your behalf in June, I have ultimate authority. This is prior to the designation of special counsel. Ultimate to me means like that you can go wherever you want to.
Right. Ultimate means
at that particular point, sir, could he file charges in the District of South Carolina? He would not have that ability, correct? He would have to go through that U.S. attorney.
And he'd have to go back to Merrick
all
Garland.
Authority.
All you'd have to do is ask me for 515 authority, and
Ask
I would
Merrick.
sign it right away, just like when he asked me to be special counsel.
So he
within
didn't
3
have
days,
authority.
I signed that.
So he didn't have ultimate authority.
he
He
did
had
not.
the authority because I promised that he would have the authority.
Oh,
he
your
did-
promise is garbage, Merrick. We want it in writing. He wanted to go and just do it. He never had ultimate authority. He had like promised future authority. He had a promise of future authority. He couldn't actually go do it. If he walked right over to California or South Carolina, as he says, or DC, then he is rejected. He's got to go through Merrick Garland, and then he's going to delegate it out. Busted.
Did not have that authority. See, here's where I'm going. If he was denied the ability to bring charges in March of 22 in the District of Columbia, if he was denied the ability to bring charges in January of 23 in the Central District of California, that's not full authority.
No, it is not.
These U.S. attorneys operate as gatekeepers, so that's not full authority to do much of anything. And you know what's remarkable to me? We sit here and we look at this, and his story has changed so many times. You know whose story hasn't changed? Mr. Shapley,
Shout
Mr.
out.
Ziegler.
Shout out.
The emails that confirm that he said, I'm not the deciding person on whether charges are filed. And you know what the response back was from his colleague at work? Yep, you covered it all, Gary. That is consistent. What Mr. Weiss has done is this shell game and saying that he has authority, he doesn't have authority, but these gatekeepers at the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia and in the Central District of California, they would have the gatekeeping authority on whether charges are brought in their jurisdictions.
I'm sorry,
Absent that designation, correct?
Those words have no meaning, gatekeepers, et cetera. Mr. Weiss said he was never denied authority. I'm the one with the authority to decide who can prosecute in a different jurisdiction.
Did you hear what he just said? Mr. Weiss said he was never denied authority. Okay, so that's not the same as he has it, obviously. He was never denied it, doesn't mean that he has it. He's being very careful about these words. And then he says, I'm the one who decides, right? You just heard that.
Authority. I'm the one with the authority to decide who can prosecute in a different jurisdiction.
Okay.
And he promised that he would have that authority. I do not see any.
And he promised it. He is totally nabbed here. He said that he never told us that I've promised David Weiss has the ultimate authority. He says David Weiss has the ultimate authority. It is different.
Consistency here. I was not at the meeting that Mr. Shapley was referring to. I know what I guaranteed, and I know what Mr. Weiss has said I guaranteed.
Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance of my time.
It's a simple question. If he already had it, why does he need it? That's the question. You said in your statement on August 11th, you said he will continue to have the authority to bring charges where, when, and wherever he decides. So how can he continue to have a power that you just gave him? That's the fundamental question the gentleman from South Carolina was asking. If he already had it, why does he need it?
And I tried to answer that he had the authority and he continued to have
When
it.
did
No,
he
he didn't.
specifically ask you, did you tell him ahead of time that he could get 515 status anytime? When did you tell him that he could get that if he requested it?
I made absolutely clear.
No, when? Did you tell him at the start of the
made
investigation?
clear from the beginning in my statements to the Senate that he would have the authority to make any decisions that he wanted to and bring prosecutions he thought were appropriate.
Gentlelady.
Would have. He would have. Did you hear that? He never had it. Okay. And we know that because he just appointed him to be special counsel status. So in my opinion, Merrick Garland lied to us. Everybody at the DOJ who had this fictional facade that David Weiss was a special counsel, they all lied to us. They said he had powers that he never did. And we know that because they're like, oh crap, we got to give him the powers. And they appointed him to be special counsel. And he is, I know this is video, this is not a transcript, but he said David Weiss would have
I-15 status anytime. When did you tell him that he could get that if he requested it?
I made absolutely clear.
No, when? Did you tell him at the start of the
made
investigation?
clear from the beginning in my statements to the Senate that he would have the authority to make any decisions that he wanted to and bring prosecutions he thought were appropriate.
Would have. That's it right there. Not that he did have, that he would have. And they told us that he did have. Okay. And I know this is semantics and word game stuff, but this, like these types of decisions, this stopped the entire Hunter Biden prosecution cold because David Weiss said that he did not have ultimate authority. And the Justice Department is just messing around in this gray area. You know, we say this phrase here sometimes that you make the money in the madness, that the gray area can be very profitable. And sometimes in the informational game, when we're transactioning knowledge and we're having conversations about who does what and when and who's in charge and who's refaulted, right? All of it is messy when you can play semantics and play word games. And David Weiss is sitting there. You know, Merrick Garland sits here, all very consistent. I know exactly who had the authority at the date and time and who could do what and when, and he could flow chart the whole thing out and Venn diagram it up with Kamala. But that's not what we're talking about here. The actual consequence of Merrick Garland and all of this wordsmithing is David Weiss that said, I don't have the authority. Like practically, he was sitting there with Shapley and the other IRS, FBI investigators, and they're saying, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. I can't do it. Leslie Wolf kept stepping on his toes. No investigation into the storage unit. You can't talk and interview all of the Biden crime family people, right? All of this is emanating from the fact that the people at the top of the investigation don't think that they have ultimate authority and they don't have ultimate power, so they can't do certain things. So it is really critical that we know what actually happened and who had authority and when. And Merrick Garland, I think, has absolutely lied to us, and his testimony today confirms that. And so this is another one from Tom McClintock, who's saying, how about these double standards that exist here, Mayor? You know, you've got Jack Smith, who has an entire team of lawyers spending millions of dollars prosecuting Trump. We've got Robert Hur, who's kind of dragging his feet on the Biden investigation. And it just feels like you let Antifa go when you round up the J6ers. If you want to presume that maybe the Antifa people were not most of the J6ers or a portion of the J6ers. But the point is, right, there are double standards in this country. Merrick, you're at the top of the chain here. What is the problem?
From California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, looking again at the appointment of Jack Smith and David Weiss, this double standard of justice couldn't be more glaring. Jack Smith was deeply involved in the IRS scandal that targeted conservative political groups to harass. His malicious prosecution of former Governor McDonnell was unanimously overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts rebuked Smith directly for attempting to criminalize political activity. You appointed him to prosecute Joe Biden's chief rival for the presidency. And then we have the appointment of David Weiss. Weiss deliberately allowed the statute of limitations to run out on any charges that could have implicated Joe Biden in influence peddling. He originally offered Hunter Biden a sweetheart deal that was ultimately upended by the court. And he's the one you appointed to pursue the charges that could implicate Joe Biden. That leads me to only two explanations, either corruption or incompetence. So which is it?
Corruption.
Those are the kind of questions that judges would rule out of order.
I'm sure you would. Which is it?
Look, I said before, and I will say again, Mr. Weiss was the Republican-appointed United States Attorney appointed by President Trump.
Do you at least see the obvious double standard applied in these two appointments?
Mr. Weiss was a Republican appointee. Mr. Smith,
who used to work with Beau Biden, okay? Hunter Biden's brother used to work with the prosecutor of Hunter in Delaware. So I get so tired of that stupid phrase, Trump appointed, Trump appointed. They kept him on. Why? Because he was their guy.
Smith is not registered to either party. His entire
I don't
career
care what
was
their
as
party
a career
registrations
prosecutor.
are. I'm not
That
asking what
does
their
not
party
seem like a
registrations
double
are. I'm
standard.
asking about their records and how those records would commend them to the appointments that you made. This is a question of judgment, and it's a question of motive. What was motivating you to do this?
Mr. Smith had a nationwide reputation for integrity and for
please, not-
appropriate prosecution. His work can be measured by what he actually has filed. Everyone in the country can see the indictments.
How can you
that he has
say that
charged. Those-
after he was so heavily implicated in the IRS scandal or the rebuke that the Supreme Court gave and many other examples?
That's what he's talking about. He loved those filings. He's like, yeah, those are perfect. Those are great. Well, he's so sorry he kind of got reprimanded for those things. But that's the type of player we want, man. Hit him at the knees. Take him out at the knees, man. We don't care if it's kind of borderline gray area ethical or unconstitutional or whatever. If you're infringing on political speech. Well, if it's the bad kind of dangerous political speech that Jack Smith wants to attack or criminalize by prosecuting people, that's fair with us. In fact, that's like a bonus. They're like, all right, who is the most scummy prosecutor that we can find out there all in this world? They're like, I don't know, this guy. Oh, this guy, Jack Smith. International Criminal Court. Let's get this guy. Perfect.
But let me go on. We've had two IRS whistleblowers inform Congress of attempts by senior Justice Department officials to obstruct the criminal investigation into millions of dollars of ill-gotten and undeclared income to Hunter Biden. They noted several deviations by department officials from normal process that provided preferential treatment, in this case to Hunter Biden, a direct quote, including allowing the statute of limitations to lapse, requesting IRS and FBI management level.
And it goes on. And so that is a good exchange. Double standards obviously exist. And so we wrap up with Merrick Garland. And this is a smart guy. You know, he went to the best law schools. He's somebody who was on the list nominated to be on the Supreme Court, and he didn't make it. Unfortunately for him. Some people think maybe he's got an axe to grind now. But not a dummy, right? Very careful with his words. When we go through here and he changes the words from had or continues to have to would have had. All of these things are painful changes for him to have to make. But he has to make them. And so now when he gets asked a question about a very obvious, question, Merrick, did you ever communicate with the FBI about Hunter Biden? Not a complicated question. Hunter's a pretty well-known dude. Not a lot of other hunters out there that are in the White House that I'm aware of that are easy to confuse with. So it's a pretty obvious thing. If you're going to be involved in the president's son's case, you'd think you'd remember that, wouldn't you?
Have you had personal contact with anyone at FBI headquarters about the Hunter Biden investigation?
I don't recollect the answer to that question, but the FBI works for the Justice Department. It's
I'm sorry. You don't recollect whether you've talked with anybody at FBI headquarters about an investigation into the president's son?
I don't believe that I did. I promised the Senate when I came before it for confirmation that I would leave Mr. Weiss in place and that I would not interfere with his investigation.
Okay, did you ever...
I have kept that promise.
Did you see him doing that acting little routine? Oh, gosh, it's a really hard answer to pull out of my brain. Oh, watch this. So you can watch his face. As he goes here, question comes, and then here, look at this. Watch this right here. Oh, he even does the air in the lips. The well, I have no idea. Oh, very complicated question here. Oh, here you go.
Have you had personal contact with anyone at FBI headquarters about the Hunter Biden investigation?
I don't recollect the answer to that question, but the FBI works for the Justice Department. It's
I'm sorry. You
do.
don't recollect.
Yeah,
you don't
you
recollect whether you've talked with anybody at FBI headquarters about an investigation into the president's son?
You do, Mayor. We all know you do. So, well, golly. Oh, it's just a confusing situation here. I'm just the Attorney General. I can't remember it. You want me to remember the president's son and the FBI? I've got a lot of other things to focus on here, like domestic violent extremism. I can't remember what the president's son does. What a joke. All right, so that's our Attorney General. Difficult time remembering things. And when they start misremembering things, that's a bad sign for them. That's not a good situation for them to be in. Hillary Clinton was in that position, like with a cloth. Oh, no, I don't recall, right? That's when you know they're totally busted. So Merrick Garland, blasted in Congress, will continue to investigate this, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and checking out robertgovea.com to sign up for our daily newsletter. We'd love to join you in your inbox, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. And so that is what's happening over with Mayor. But now, let's carry on with Hunty. Hunter Biden is due in court, and he does not want to go there in person. He likes to kind of hang out in the gutter. But now he's asking the judge for permission to appear by Zoom so that he can just call in virtually and escape the media cameras. And so we're going to go through two different filings, one from his lawyer, which is a request to appear virtually by Zoom. And the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is actually objecting to this. They're saying, no, sorry, Hunty, you're going to have to show up there in person. We've got reaction from Jim Jordan. James Comer says that Hunter's lawsuit against the IRS is tantamount to witness intimidation. And we'll wrap it up with Joseph Ziegler, who is saying that this is an attack on his duty to blow the whistle on corruption within the IRS. And so, of course, we've got the letter from Hunter's lawyer. This is from Abe Lowell, and he sends a 3-page letter over to the judge. And the story behind this is actually interesting. If you read the court docket, the docket said, it sounded like somebody called in, like they called the court, and they said, hey, can we just appear by phone? And so the judge issued an order that said, if you want to ask us to do anything, well, you're going to have to file a motion. And so they did. So it's kind of a funny thing. It's like, you can't just call to ask for something like that. You got to file a motion. And it's like, oh, all right. The judge entered an order. Boom, this dropped the next day. From Abe David Lowell, partner over at Winston & Strawn. September 19th. To the Honorable Judge Christopher J. Berkey, who's going to be the magistrate judge out of the District of Delaware, who's going to be handling the arraignment. And we remember that we have magistrate judges who will handle a lot of the preliminary things. Just like in the Florida case with Trump, we have Judge Cannon, and a lot of the other things like the arraignments were handled by Judge Reinhardt. Same thing's happening here. So we've got here a judge that we're not familiar with, Judge Berkey. They're saying, hey, Your Honor, Hunter's lawyers, we write on behalf of our client, Hunty. In response to the court's order that you said that we needed to submit this in writing. Here we are. We respectfully request that the court hold Hunty's initial appearance in this case by video conference. He doesn't want to come here. Neither party would be prejudiced by doing so, and the financial impact on government resources and the logistical burden on the downtown area of Wilmington are significant in having to have Hunty travel across the country, which should be a rather short proceeding. They don't want him to have to fly from his lawyer's Malibu place or wherever he is in California all the way across the country. They say Mr. Biden understands both the charges against him and his rights, which are the primary purposes of this proceeding. And since he already knows this stuff, we don't need to be there. We believe the court can be assured of that fact by conducting this appearance by video. No matter whether we're in person or virtual, he will be waiving the reading of the indictment, which is a common thing. The judge, part of the arraignment process, the initial appearance process, is you got to know what the charges are against you. And the judge can literally read the entire indictment if you want him to, or you can say, we've already read it, we waive the right to do that. They say it's merely a few pages, could be easily read at a video conference, and Mr. Biden will enter a plea of not guilty, and so there's no reason why he cannot just simply utter those words by a video conference. It's just 2 words, Judge, just 2 words. In short, Mr. Biden is satisfied that his constitutional rights will be met by conducting this appearance by video. They say Mr. Biden is not seeking any special treatment in making this request, by the way. Not only was he given a sweetheart plea deal, never had his home raided, he's probably going to get a ton of time to review the discovery, unlike other people. They say he's not getting any special treatment in making this request. He has attended and will attend any proceedings in which his physical appearance is required. And in addition, neither Mr. Biden nor the government would be prejudiced if this was conducted by video. And there exists precedent to do it. This court permitted somebody else to do this as recently as January of this year. And they reference the case. They say these sorts of appearances by video became commonplace during COVID, and we know that they're efficient and they lack prejudice. And so while in-person initial appearances have resumed now that the pandemic has waned and now it's a little safer to do it, courts in this circuit have not hesitated to conduct initial appearances and arraignments by video when it's more efficient to do so. Saying in this regard, Hunty's request is nothing out of the ordinary, Your Honor. The indictment came back on September 14th. Hunty got charged with 3 counts filed by the government on an existing docket of the same case number already open. And while the charges in this indictment may be new, the proceedings are not. Mr. Biden already made an initial appearance before Judge Norica related to the tax misdemeanors. This is the gun charge. So they're saying he already showed up in court once following the hearing. The marshals and probation processed Mr. Biden at the courthouse, which included the usual procedures. And look at this, my friends. He was submitted to multiple sets of fingerprints and he had his photograph taken. There's a Hunter mugshot photo, fingerprints, and a mugshot. Now, how come they haven't released that to us and plastered that all over the media? Where's the mugshot? And filled out the required forms for release. As the court instructed Mr. Biden at the conclusion of that hearing, he needed to go downstairs to the marshal's office for processing, and he's got to catch up with probation. So Mr. Biden was then processed. Since that proceeding, Mr. Biden has scrupulously complied with his conditions since returning home to California. And this is where they're going to make the argument that the diversion deal, which they allege is a private contract between the government and them, is in effect, which immunizes Hunter from everything. They're going to make this argument. You can see they're already framing it out. He's complied with his conditions, and it's his expectations that the conditions will remain in place. Moreover, should there be any discussion of revising Mr. Biden's condition of release, so he's making the point that the judge already set release conditions on the tax charges, released on his own recognizance. I think he has to do some drug testing, stuff like that. He's saying they already set release conditions in the tax case, so basically just carry over those release conditions over to the gun charge. Moreover, should there be any discussion of revising Mr. Biden's existing conditions, there's no reason why we can't do this by video. The problem with this is there is a reason that this is a problem. Okay, if the judge does want to modify the release conditions, like let's say the judge comes back, judge is sitting there, and they say, okay, Hunty, you're here on new charges for the gun crime, and here's 3 gun charges, so here's what we're talking about. Government, what do we know about the case? And the prosecutor says, well, Your Honor, last time we were here, you told him to go down and get a drug test. Well, he went down, got a drug test, and he came back, he's full of crack. And the judge could say, you're full of crack? Whoa. Yeah, we thought there was some cocaine or something at the White House. This makes a lot of sense. And the judge could say, well, guess what? Your release conditions are changed because you're already in violation. Probation has made a bad report. You're going into custody right now. That's a different problem if you're on video than if you're in person. You just go right into custody if you're in person. Can't do that if you're on video. So given these reasons, Mr. Biden seeks this procedure to minimize the unnecessary burden on government resources and the disruption to the courthouse and the downtown areas when a person protected by Secret Service flies across the country and then must be transported to and from a downtown location. Without getting into the specifics, they're saying this is a big deal. You know, this is the president's son after all. Numerous agents and vehicles are required for what would have to be a 2-day event for a proceeding that's very short, which I agree with. They are short. They're 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This includes agent planes in California and Delaware, as well as agents who must travel with him on the plane. It's a lot, yeah. Trump has had to do it 4 times now. Okay. So yeah, Hunter's going to have to do it too, I guess. In addition, as the court is aware from the last appearance, security also requires shutting down local roadways in Wilmington, advanced coordination with law enforcement, the Marshal Service, and other logistical challenges. So the government's opposition, as we're going to read in a minute, to this common sense request is puzzling because Mr. Biden is not asking for special treatment, as individuals without the additional considerations herein regularly make such appearances by video. Yeah, sorry. I mean, Trump had to go show up in court for his charges. So this signed off on here by Abe Lowell, counsel for Robert Hunter Biden. You see here, this final page is blank, and they're saying it's a lot of work for the president's son, Secret Service and everything, and can he just show up on a Zoom meeting? Well, the government says, sorry, we don't think so. Shorter filing from the DOJ. This is the office of the special counsel, David Weiss, if you believe it. They're sending this one, and this is not coming from Leo. This is coming from Derek Hines. And let's see what he says in response. To the Honorable Judge. Dear Judge, the government prosecutors, David Weiss and others, now oppose Hunter's request for a virtual appearance. 15 months ago, the court's standing order authorizing virtual proceedings during the pandemic expired. And since it expired, this court has almost always held in-person initial appearances for the defendants, and Hunter should be treated no differently. Hunter suggests that an accommodation is necessary due to the financial impact on the government resources and the logistical burden. But the only 2 cases from this district that he cites as precedent does not even involve those issues. For example, in U.S. versus Ben, in that case, the defendant was wounded in California during a gang-related shooting, and he was not medically cleared for travel. Okay, that's why he didn't go, Hunter. In U.S. versus Burns, a virtual hearing was held 2 days after the expiration of the standing order for a defendant located in Texas who could not afford to travel to Delaware. So something just expired and boom, they just had to do it quickly. Hunter Biden does not contend that he's injured, he was not shot in a gang-related incident, or he's not indigent, meaning he can afford it. He's not poor, right? He can travel. This other guy couldn't afford a plane ticket. If convenience was a legitimate basis to warrant virtual proceedings, every single defendant would ask for them in every case, and Hunter can afford to travel. Now, although the federal rules of criminal procedure, although they do permit teleconferencing for hearings, the commentary to the rules, the explanations to the rules, says that the court has discretion to decide whether or not to hold proceedings virtually. As noted in the commentary, they say much can be lost when video teleconferencing occurs. A non-exhaustive set of reasons not to hold a virtual hearing include the following. First, one reason you might want to not do it by video is it may not promote the public's confidence in the integrity and the solemnity of a federal criminal proceeding. That is the view that some have witnessed to use the proceedings in state jurisdictions. Now, while it's difficult to quantify intangible benefits and the impact of requiring a person to be brought into the courtroom, the committee realizes, who assembled these rules, that something is lost when a defendant is not required to make a personal appearance. Another consideration may be that some courtroom equipment, so some equipment might not be good. They might not have the right equipment for high quality transmissions. And finally, the judge may miss an opportunity, to accurately assess the physical, emotional, mental condition of a defendant, a factor that may weigh on pretrial decisions like release from detention. You want to look into somebody's eyes and see if they're on crack. It's hard to do that if you're not there in person. And you want to see if they're shaken or whatever, right? Judges look for that stuff, and I'm telling you that from experience. Hard to see that stuff when you're zoomed out all the way back in a camera, nobody can see you. An in-person hearing, says the government, is important to promote the public's confidence, if there is any left, that Hunter is being treated consistently with other defendants. They say the previous arraignment held in connection with this matter was anything but routine because the defendant and his previous lawyers were not prepared to answer the court's questions. For example, the defendant provided contradictory testimony. Hunter really botched that whole thing. And his previous attorney apologized to the court for the way the defendant and his lawyer chose to answer the court's questions. Apparently during that plea deal, the defense attorney apologized to the judge for his unartful phrasing for some of the issues, caused him to revise his position. The confusion they caused resulted in the court twice recessing the proceeding only to ultimately defer a decision based on the proposed and subsequently withdrawn diversion and plea deals. So in other words, don't act like the first proceeding went swimmingly, okay? It was a disaster. And so if you're trying to carry the benefits of that into this proceeding, you're nuts. It was a disaster. Although the government anticipates this proceeding should be straightforward since the parties have not reached an agreement, we believe an in-person proceeding may be more conducive to addressing any unforeseen issues that arise. This is another good point. It's also a great opportunity for the attorneys to meet, government prosecutors and the defense. Finally, the government anticipates asking this court to order conditions of pretrial release consistent with probation and the recommendations of the prior order. Given the serious felony gun charges at issue, they're calling it serious here, which is funny because it's not. This court should have an opportunity to assess the defendant in a live setting to see if he's on crack and considering recommendations for conditions of release. Accordingly, the government opposes Hunter's request for a virtual proceeding. And they say, previously, Judge, the Secret Service has also coordinated with the marshals. And they have provided protective services in multiple initial appearances and arraignments. Yeah, they've done it. They've got pretty good at it because Trump has done this 4 times now. So Hunter can do it again. And that is the letter from the prosecutors. Now, we'll see what the judge says about it. I do hope that she hauls his butt in there, or this is a gentleman judge, Christopher Berkey. We'll see if he hauls Hunter in there. But we're continuing to see more pressure, not only in the courts, but in Congress as well. Jim Jordan got to ask some questions of Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, the man who has botched the appointment of David Weiss and the prosecution here. Questions about this, and he's got 4 points about Hunter's criminality.
Here are 4 facts that I think are so important. Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma, made a lot of money, got paid a lot of money over those years, a couple $1 million. He wasn't qualified. Fact number 2, he wasn't qualified to be on the board of Burisma. Not my words, his words. He said he got on the board because of his last name. The brand, as Devin Archer said when he was under oath and we deposed him. Fact number 3, Burisma executives told Hunter Biden, we're under pressure, we need help. Fact number 4, Joe Biden goes to Ukraine, leverages our tax money, American people's tax money, to get the prosecutor fired who was applying the pressure. Interestingly enough, that fact is entirely consistent with what the confidential human source told the FBI, and they recorded in the 1023 form, the same form Mr. Wray didn't want to let this committee and the Congress see. That all happened. That all happened.
4 reasons why Hunter is a criminal. And of course, we've known all of those things, but Jim Jordan is diving into it in Congress. Now, we also know that the Biden crime family and Hunter, through his lawyers, submitted a lawsuit suing the IRS for damages against Hunter because he's a victim of, I guess, something. They say that the whistleblowers have been communicating illegal information about Hunter's tax records, and now they're suing the IRS. Now, James Comer, who is on the Oversight Committee, who has been doing good work with the IRS whistleblowers, is here to explain that this is not about collecting damages. As we talked about when we reviewed Hunter's IRS lawsuit, he was asking for about $16,000 of damages, give or take, plus some attorney's fees and stuff like that. But the attorney's fees, my estimation, are going to be a lot more than $16,000. And so this is about causing a consequence, not recouping recovery, money, monetary damages. Here is James Comer explaining that this is really about witness intimidation.
The whistleblowers have protected whistleblower protection. Democrats in Congress used to care about that. They used to file bills and pass bills to protect whistleblowers and encourage whistleblowers to come forward. That's exactly what the two brave whistleblowers did who testified before my House Oversight Committee. But what we're seeing now in real life form is witness intimidation by the Biden legal team. They want to send a message to any other potential whistleblowers out there. Do not cooperate with the House Oversight Committee. Do not cooperate with this investigation, or we will sue you and see that you're liable and have to pay out your entire life savings for simply telling the truth.
Congressman, also on a separate note,
All right, so that is absolutely true, and we can confirm this because Joseph Ziegler, don't forget about Garrett Ziegler, MarcoPoloUSA.org, by the way, but Joseph Ziegler is here, and he says that, yes, I am a whistleblower. I hear what this lawsuit says against the IRS. I also, as a whistleblower, believe this is what it's about. It's about silencing people like me who are exposing the truth about the Biden crime family.
So I want to give you an opportunity to respond to something that Hunter Biden's lawsuit says. They say that under oath you had previously stated that you only recommended misdemeanor charges for Mr. Biden for tax year 2017, not, as you told me on my show, related to 2017, 2018, and 2019. So help us clear that up.
So Jake, I really appreciate you for having me on the show. So this lawsuit that was filed yesterday, this is an effort to silence me and Gary. This is an effort to silence future whistleblowers from coming forward. This is an effort to silence IRS people from coming forward to Congress. And it's disappointing. It's disappointing and it's disheartening. And what I would point everyone to is we followed the law. We followed the whistleblower law. Congress wrote into law 6103 provisions, which protects taxpayer information. That law was written by Congress, and they also added a caveat for whistleblowers, 6103 F5. We presented to the House Ways and Means Committee. They voted that out of the committee, and then now that is public information. You can actually find that information on their website. So that was publicly available information. I came on to your show. I discussed information that was within my transcript, and and I stick by what I said in my transcript to the House Ways and Means Committee.
All right, so that is Joseph Ziegler, IRS whistleblower. And we just got the news, my friends, that the Hunter Biden judge denies his request to appear virtually. Let's take a look at the order. This one is fresh out of the oven, coming in today, and we see that it says in a short 2-page filing from the judge, Christopher J. Berkey, says the following. All right, the court has reviewed the motions here, and Hunter is seeking leave to appear by video for his initial appearance. As we're going to explain, the court orders that Hunter's motion is denied. They say the court understands Hunty's point that the initial appearance, as well as the arraignment, which will occur at the same hearing, will not likely be lengthy, and that there will be some amount of logistical inconvenience for Hunty and the Secret Service if the hearing is held in person as opposed by video. But although initial appearances in criminal matters are often short, our court has always considered them to be important. In part, that is because the hearing is one of the few occasions in a criminal case when a defendant physically appears in our court before a judge in a setting that helps emphasize the integrity and solemnity of a federal criminal proceeding. And in part, that is due to the significant nature of the rights that are discussed at the hearing. The judge says, moreover, in this matter, most of the criminal charges that Hunty now faces are new and were not addressed at his prior hearing in July, such that this will be the first time that they are discussed. The court will also address Hunty's pretrial release conditions, while the court expects that it is likely that the currently imposed conditions will remain in place. Were either side to suggest alterations, the court would want to be able to address that in person with the parties, right? This is the crackhead provision. If anybody wants to make an adjustment, like probation comes back or pretrial services comes back and they say, you know, Hunter's testing a little hot on some of these numbers, somebody might want to suggest some alternative. And the judge might say, well, all right, now you're going into custody. Not saying that's likely to happen, but it is a possibility. And this is why judges want you there at that first setting. Other instances of COVID when the court was proceeding under a now expired CARES Act standing order. In 12 years as a judge, the undersigned judge cannot recall ever having conducted an initial appearance other than in person. And we're not starting now. That has been the case as to defendants of all types, regardless of their location or their personal circumstance. In the end, the court agrees with both the defendant and the government that Hunter should not receive special treatment in this case any more than he's already got from the government. Absent some unusual circumstance, he should be treated just as he would any other defendant in our court. Any other defendant would be required to attend his or her initial appearance in person. So too here. Therefore, Hunter's motion is denied. An initial appearance and arraignment is scheduled September 26, 10 a.m. in courtroom 2A, and your butt better be there, Hunter. Signed by Judge Christopher J. Burke. Shout out to the judge. All right. Pack your bags, Hunter. Make sure you leave your bong at home with your lawyer or your other lawyer. All right. And so that, my friends, is the update. Hunter asks the judge to appear by Zoom, and he is denied. And so, of course, we'll continue to cover that. We will have an initial appearance arraignment at the end of September, and I hope you join us as we cover it. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for visiting robertgovea.com to catch the latest, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. And we've got one final segment, and this is some good stuff, my friends. Let's get right to it. Former Capitol Hill Chief of Police Stephen Sund testified in front of Congress, and he's confirming what many of us have said for a long time. Nancy Pelosi was really responsible for January 6th. She was the senior official to whom the Sergeant at Arms from the House of Representatives reported, and the House of Representatives Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving, was the guy who got a bunch of phone calls from Stephen Sund to bring in the National Guard. But as we're going to hear, Stephen Sund tells us it took 71 minutes for that approval to happen, despite making dozens of phone calls. Calling. Nobody's answering, in my opinion, because they wanted it all to happen. And they, as per usual, project, and so they blame Trump for sitting around on his big fat butt in whatever room he was in, watching the news, eating lunch or whatever. Here, they were doing exactly that. It was their House of Representatives, their Senate chamber. They had responsibility for protecting the building. They let it fail. Capitol Hill Chief of Police, former Stephen Sund, was testifying, and I'd encourage you to really support his efforts by considering to buy his book, Courage Under Fire. We'll revisit that here at the end. But this is what the Capitol Hill Chief of Police said when he testified in front of Congress. And I want to get this queued up so we don't miss anything. At 16:35 is when his statement starts.
That you please wrap up, as that indicates your 5 minutes has expired. I now recognize Chief Sund for 5 minutes.
Former Chief of Police on January 6th.
Chairman Loudermilk, Ranking Member Torres, and members of the subcommittee. It is hard to believe that it has been almost 3 years since January 6th, and we are still having congressional hearings to identify what contributed to that tragic day. To date, there have been 4 congressional reports, along with several Inspector General and Government Accountability Office reports, and they continue to support what many of us have suspected from the very beginning. January 6th was an intelligence failure. We rely on accurate intelligence to help us develop effective security and operational plans. Accurate intelligence is an essential factor in the decision-making process of the Capitol Police Board, and the oversight committees. We now know that significant intelligence existed, that individuals were plotting to storm the Capitol building, target lawmakers, and discussing shooting my officers. And yet no intel agencies or units sounded the alarm. We were blindsided. Intelligence failed operations.
Why is that? The FBI had dozens, if not hundreds, of informants. They had informants with the Proud Boys. Why did they not notify the Capitol Police about this?
The January 6th attack at the Capitol was preventable. If the intelligence had been accurately reported and the FBI and DHS had followed their policies and established practices, I wouldn't be sitting here today. There was a failure to connect the dots on 9/11 and again on January 6. I'm concerned if we do not identify and correct these issues, we may fail again in the future. I did everything I could to protect and defend the U.S. Capitol and the members of Congress prior to and on January 3rd. Prior to January 6th and prior to and on January 6th. On January 3rd, I requested the assistance of the National Guard to support my perimeter and was denied by the 2 sergeant-at-arms over the concern for politics and optics.
Politics.
Still concerned for the number of personnel I had on my perimeter, I called the MPD earlier on the morning of January 6th and asked if they could stage additional personnel closer to the Capitol on Constitution Avenue. Less than 2 hours later, we were violently attacked on the west front of the Capitol at 12:53 p.m. I immediately followed up on that morning call and contacted MPD Chief Carroll at 12:55 p.m. and requested those resources. MPD was on the scene within minutes and were assisting my officers in holding the line and delaying the breach of the building. It took 81 agonizing minutes for that mob to fight their way through numerous police lines before they were able to breach the Capitol. The decision to reach out to MPD proved critical in safeguarding the members of Congress. Minutes after the attack began, I made my first call to House Sergeant-at-Arms Paul Irving at 12:58 p.m. to request approval to bring in the National Guard. "Let me run it up the chain, and I will get back to you," was his response.
Who's that?
It would be 71 minutes before that approval would finally come.
Whoa.
Between 12:58 and when I finally received approval for the National Guard at 2:09 p.m., I made 32 calls to coordinate support from my officers, including at least 11 frustrating calls to the Sergeant-at-Arms
11.
regarding my request for the National Guard. My calls to my partner law enforcement agencies resulted in hundreds of police officers from around the National Capital Region and as far away as New Jersey responding to assist. After I received approval to call in the National Guard, I then had to beg the Pentagon officials to send us help. I was repeatedly denied assistance by the Army Lieutenant General Pyatt, citing concerns over optics of the National Guard on Capitol Hill.
More optics.
The D.C. National Guard, many of whom were standing within eyesight of the Capitol, and whose motto is Capitol Guardians, would not arrive until almost 6 p.m. after the fighting was over and the Capitol.
They loved the optics. They loved what they were seeing. They wanted those optics. The optics of a secure Capitol with nothing going on was not what they wanted.
Ground secured. The New Jersey State Police arrived before they did. To add insult to injury, the Inspector General for the Department of Defense considered the response, quote, appropriate. Besides the MPD, the National Guard was the next largest cadre of personnel that could be deployed to assist my officers. We desperately needed those boots on the ground. The fact that the Chief of Police, responsible for the entire legislative branch of government, was repeatedly denied assistance by the Pentagon is indefensible.
Insane.
The
It's
fact
insane.
that an experienced law enforcement official was constrained by federal law from bringing in life-saving resources for his officers is unfathomable.
It's insane.
This type of politicized control over
It's
and
intentional.
oversight was and continues to be detrimental to the mission. Why bring in an experienced police chief if you're not going to allow him to do his job? In December 2021, Congress amended 2 U.S.C. 1970, the law that restricted my ability to bring in federal resources. While the amendment now grants the chief authority to call in federal resources only during an emergency, it does not grant the chief authority to request federal resources in advance of an event, which means the request can still be denied. In other words, the law still requires the chief to seek advance approval from the Capitol Police Board and congressional leadership. This is exactly what I faced on January 3rd. It should also be noted that the new amendment makes the chief emergency authorization revocable. I am extremely proud and appreciative of the Capitol Police officers, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the other law enforcement agencies that came to our assistance. Despite bureaucratic issues on the Hill and a no-show by the military, it was law enforcement that saved the day, and not a single member of Congress was injured. Thanks to the assisting law enforcement, the men and women of the Capitol Police did not fail in their mission. In conclusion, I ask that this committee address the institutional failures that contributed to January 6th. I also implore the committee to have an independent entity investigate the complaints and allegations of retaliation against intel whistleblowers following January 6th, and to review any of the personnel actions, to include disciplinary actions that occurred following January 6th, to ensure they were properly investigated and not subject to any inappropriate actions, coercion, influences, or predetermined outcomes. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
All right, great opening statement from Stephen Sund, the former Capitol Hill Chief of Police. And as we heard him say, He made a phone call to Sergeant at Arms of the House, Paul Irving, at 12:58 p.m. Made 11 phone calls, finally got approval 71 minutes later, walked us through the timeline, saying, I need help. Okay, you can picture this man scrambling all over the place, trying to muster support, going to the people who gives him permission to do that, to the Pentagon, to the Sergeant at Arms. They're all stalling him out. They're all saying sorry, right? He is the hub in the middle of the wheel. All these people are the spokes. He's trying to get them all to communicate, and they're all just hitting the FU button on the phone. So he can't get any support at all. And what we see is after those 11 calls, finally they grant some approval. It takes them hours later to show up. And finally they show up. Most of the things are already over. Now, Sun obviously has been made to be the scapegoat of this, and they asked for his resignation immediately after all of this occurred. This is what Nancy Pelosi said during the aftermath of January 6th. And she was brought in, and listen to this. This is wild to watch in hindsight, because she's now going to be blaming Stephen Sun, right? The whole thing has already been set up. But the question that she gets lobbed here is about the Sergeant at Arms. So she just defers right on past that, okay? Skips right over the Sergeant at Arms, the person who would have approved some support, goes right to Sun.
Security breaches here. Chuck Schumer's talking about firing the Sergeant at Arms over there. Are you thinking of a similar step over here? What are you going to do to address the security breaches on the Capitol?
Well, let me just say that that is a very important question. Let me hold for a moment, because it is not, we have to do the after action review. I have,
what?
I am calling for the resignation of the chief of the Capitol Police, Mr. Sund, and I have received notice from Mr. Irving that he will be submitting his resignation.
Okay, so the guy who was calling for help and the guy who was ignored, they asked for his resignation. Pelosi asked for it, Paul Irving asked for it, and they just make him the scapegoat. They start to exit him immediately.
Having said that, we have the after action review, but it goes beyond the Capitol Police. It goes to the FBI. What was the shortcoming in their intelligence that they provided? It goes.
They didn't provide anything. Stephen Sun just told us they didn't provide anything. They knew a ton of this because they had guys like Kenny Lizardo who were hanging out with Enrique Tarrio, picking him up from jail. Okay, they had informants all over the place. In the Proud Boys trial, the defense attorneys estimated there were as many as 50 informants, and we didn't know much about them because many of them were not a part of the FBI at all. In fact, they put them over to be a part of DHS, Homeland Security Intelligence, whatever agency that was. So you just couldn't identify the people.
Goes to the Department of Defense. How long did it take for them to respond or anticipate the need for the National Guard? It goes to many other elements of the executive branch, and I think we have to have a full review. But from the standpoint of, well, let me just say this, many of our Capitol Police just acted so bravely and so with such concern for the staff, for the members, for the Capitol.
But not Stephen Sun. He's got to go.
Many of them,
because he has all the inside info about your corruption.
But there was a failure of leadership at the top of the Capitol Police.
No, it was the Senate Sergeant at Arms.
He hasn't even called us since this happened. You know, so.
Did you hear that? Okay, did you hear that? He hasn't even called us. He didn't even call. We have another segment coming up. Stephen Sun's going to respond to that.
I had made aware that I would be saying that we're calling for his resignation. Now, in that score, getting back to what was underestimated, that the President of the United States would not be as insightful.
Trump.
Perhaps somebody thought for a moment that he would be patriotic before he leaves office for just this once. So again,
you guys set him up.
The fact that these people were incited. And you know what? Last night, I don't know if you heard on the floor, but some of the Republicans and their enabling of the president's bad behavior have said those were not Trumpites. They were Antifa invading the Capitol.
Yeah.
Disguised as Trumpites.
Yeah.
Right. So
and feds.
We have a problem here.
And feds, guys like Ray Epps.
Enabling that is going on with the Republicans in the Congress as well. And undermining the election, again, enabling the president. And if they don't recognize what yesterday was, a threshold was crossed of such magnitude that there is no way that this president should be allowed to make any decision to rouse any troops
Yep.
of his Trumpites.
Trump is still in office right now.
What's next? What happens today?
We got to stop him.
Who knows?
We got to get rid of him.
But we do know that he must be contained.
He must be contained, right? The intelligence op was in effect, and that's what they used to bring in the second impeachment and to try to stop him, let's say, from pardoning Snowden or from pardoning Julian Assange or from doing anything else. They had leverage on him because they've instigated the January 6th attacks. And so there's another clip. Now, Pelosi just got done telling us that she never even got a phone call from Stephen Sund. It was very rude. You know, you'd think that the Capitol Hill chief of police would just make a phone call, for crying out loud. Let's see if that's true.
For being here today. Members of the committee and Congress are thankful for your prior service to the U.S. Capitol Police and your commitment to protecting members, staff, and visitors. My priority as chairman of the Committee on House Administration is to depoliticize Capitol Police. I'm committed to ensuring the U.S. Capitol Police has the tools, resources, and leadership it needs to keep our community safe. I also remain committed to supporting our law enforcement officers and the work they do each day. Today, we're here to discuss the security failures that occurred on January 6, 2021, and how we can prevent these failures from occurring again. I want to dive into the questions, Chief Sund. In your transcribed interview, you mentioned that you met with the House Sergeant at Arms regarding the National Guard prior to January 6th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And who was the House Sergeant at Arms leading up to and on January 6th?
That would be Paul Irving.
And the House Sergeant at Arms is appointed by who?
It was appointed at that time by Speaker Pelosi.
And in your transcribed interview, you mentioned that when you first brought up the National Guard to the House Sergeant at Arms in the days leading up to January 6th, that Mr. Irving said he, quote, didn't like the optics, end quote. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That is correct. He referenced being concerned for optics.
And on January 6th, when you went to Mr. Irving to get his approval to call in the Guard, Mr. Irving said he would, quote, run it up the chain. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That was a telephone call. I didn't see him in person when I first made that request.
The House Sergeant at Arms is considered probably the most senior security official on the House side. When Mr. Irving says yes to, quote, run it up the chain, end quote, what did that mean?
I took that to mean his leadership chain.
Who is that?
And who would be his leadership chain?
It would
If
be
he's functionally the most senior security official on the House side, correct?
That's his title. That's part of the title, the senior law enforcement official for the House of Representatives. But he would have been referring to the leadership team that goes up to Speaker Pelosi.
So the political leadership team, meaning elected officials, not another security official. Is that your
That
understanding?
is correct, sir. He's the top security official for the House.
Okay.
So running up the chain would most likely, in your opinion, is through the Speaker's office and possibly to Speaker Pelosi?
That would be where it ends, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so let's park that there, and then let's jump to a second set here. In a press conference on January 7th, Speaker Pelosi called for your resignation on national television. Speaker Pelosi also stated that she had not talked to you since the initial breach of the Capitol. But according to your transcribed interview, you were on the phone with Speaker Pelosi a few times. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, that is correct. I spoke to Speaker Pelosi 3 times that evening, and
Wow.
she went on national TV and said I'd never spoken to her, but I spoke to her 3 times. The three times were the first time when I went over to brief Vice President Pence at the secure location. I'd called House Sergeant at Arms Irving, told him I was going over to brief the Vice President. I was also going over to do a personal assessment of the Capitol. At that point, things were getting under control. Went over there, briefed him on when we can get them back into chambers with, Mr. Irving being fully aware. He said he wanted to get Speaker Pelosi on the phone. He made a phone call from his cell phone at approximately 5:34, where I first briefed Speaker Pelosi.
Oh, how about
the
that?
second call was when I left that location. As I was walking away, I met up with Mr. Stenger, and we started walking over to the Senate to go brief the Senate. When Jennifer Hemingway, I believe it was Jennifer Hemingway, handed me the cell phone, and it was Emily Barrett's cell phone calling her, and it was Speaker Pelosi on the other line.
On
This
the
is my
phone?
second call with Speaker
2
Pelosi.
times she's on the
Questioning
phone.
the information I'd given to Vice President Pence about when we can get back into chambers. I assured her that information was correct. I could get them back into chambers by 7 p.m., and the call ended. That was call number 2. Call number 3 was 6:25 p.m. I was over at the Senate from the secure location, from where the Senate had been sequestered. And on a cell phone, using Robert Karam's cell phone, they dialed leadership, who was over off-site at a secure location, and I briefed all of leadership of the plans to get them back into chambers. That would have been call number 3 with Speaker Pelosi.
So you didn't have one call, you didn't have 2 calls, you had 3 calls. So Speaker Pelosi's comments that she didn't speak to you are inaccurate.
That's correct, sir.
Let me shift gears and go back
She's a liar.
as it relates to the optics of bringing people up to Capitol Hill and running things up the chain of command, ultimately to the Speaker's office. Do you think Speaker Pelosi's office or Speaker Pelosi herself politicized Capitol security?
I have no idea on that, sir.
Okay. Any other clarifications you'd like to make as it relates to Speaker Pelosi's comments that you didn't speak to her?
I just, wish she had considered that, wish she had considered some of the stuff that I've faced and the efforts I went through to bring in the outside resources on that day before she called for my resignation.
Thank you very much for being here. I yield back.
Yeah, it would have been nice if she would have been honest with us about it, but she wasn't interested in honesty. She made that man the scapegoat. He called and literally spoke to her 3 times. He's got the receipts for it. He's got the times. He knows who he spoke to. But she went out in front of America and literally lied to everybody. So if she's going to lie about even the phone calls, that means, can you trust anything she says? Her credibility does not exist. Stephen Son ended up resigning, and he has been hammered ever since then. He's one man speaking the truth amongst others. But I'd encourage you to support him, my friends. If you have the means, support him. You can follow him on Twitter. He's also got this book called Courage Under Fire. It's a great book, very factually based, and I think it's quite good. So I'd encourage you to support him. It's one way to show him that you're out there. Stephen Son on Amazon or wherever it is you buy books, Courage Under Fire. And the fire I think he's under now is from the left, from the deep state, from the people who don't want him to tell the truth about the phone calls that he made and about all the things that really happened. So shout out to Stephen Son, confirming Pelosi is behind January 6th. All right, my friends. Now that is it for us on the day. And so we are going to leave it there. We got a good update from Stephen Son. We've got Hunter asking the judge to appear by Zoom and being denied. And then, of course, we had Merrick Garland appearing in front of Congress, in front of the Judiciary today to answer questions about all of their partisan corruption. But now it's time to hear from you and see what you have to say about all of this. We're going to say what's up to our friends on YouTube, our friends on Rumble, our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, which is where we will go to our members only after party as soon as we say hello to you, my friends. Of course, also want to invite you to sign up for our daily newsletter at robertgovea.com. We'd appreciate that. And so let's see who we have in the house. Thank you, my friends, for these generous donos coming in on the house. And Crash to Contraries, starting us off over on Locals. Oops, what the heck did I just do? What the heck was that? I don't think I've ever done that before. All right, let's do this. Boom. We got Crashes in the house. Says Rob, according to Fox News, Representative Mark Green from Tennessee says that 18,000 military-aged Chinese nationals have come across the southern border under Joe. For perspective, that is nearly the same size as the ground combat element of the 3rd Marine Division, grunts, cannon, people, recon, etc. 18,000. Time to impeach the guy now. See the attached vid on YouTube from Crash to Contrary. Thank you for that, Crash. It's crazy. So I just saw that the town of Eagle Pass in Texas declared a state of emergency. Remember, about 1 year ago, there was the Haitian migrant crisis under a bridge. There's another one right now. Almost to the day, a year to the day. Eagle Pass just declared a state of emergency. City of Eagle Pass. Today, the mayor signed an emergency declaration declaring a state of disaster due to immigration. And I think there was something from Bill Malugin on this one. Let me see if I can grab it. Yeah, here's kind of what, let me try to find it. And it's not good, not a good situation over there. Here is what it looks like under the bridge. Same thing happening. Oh my gosh, there's a donkey over there. Oh, it's a horse. It's a Border Patrol horse. Same thing. It's like deja vu. It's like deja vu, isn't it? We just did this a year ago. We just did this a year ago. And here we are again. This is an Eagle Pass from Bill Malugin. Yeah, he says it feels like deja vu. I took the images on the left exactly 2 years ago. I took the images on the right. Oh, these are the ones on the right. Venezuela. Here, look, it's the same thing. This was 1 year ago. This is today. That was 1 year ago. This is today. Same thing. And they say the border's great. It's all getting better or something. So that was a good comment. Thanks for sharing that one from Crash in the house. We've also got MAGA Hat Stays says Linwood cooperates in Georgia. This guy was bad news. I saw that. I haven't looked into that one in depth, but I did see that he is apparently a witness against Trump. Thanks, MAGA Hat. Brett the Illustrator is in the house. What's up, Brett? Thanks for becoming a supporter on YouTube. We do member-only streams in the morning for our members. We do Saturday shows, and we do after parties. So hopefully we see you at all three, Brett. Thanks for joining us. Southern Comfort says, another reason why you might want the virtual appearance is so you can avoid the P-test. No doubt about that. Hunter doesn't want to test positive for the crack. We've got Jennifer Newman is here laughing. Thank you, Jennifer, for that one. Very nice one. Thanks for being a member, too, sending in this support. And I don't know, what is that that looks like an interesting mouth. I don't know what that is, but it is an interesting mouth. Thank you, Jennifer. That's not your fault. It's just it's an interesting animation. I appreciate it. Thanks, Jennifer. We got Curtis Bottoms is in the house. Says, welcome, Curtis, became a supporter. So hopefully we see you in the after party. Should be fun. We've got Ian Mack here. Says Garland 2 years later doesn't know. So his defense is that he is so terrible at his job, he hasn't bothered to look into it. It's a barefaced lie. Yeah, it's like, look, that is not the right answer, right? Congress has been asking about this for a long time. So either you didn't look into it because you don't want to. You tried to look into it. You couldn't get the answer because your agency is corrupt. Or you're just you're incompetent. Like, why aren't you getting the questions for Congress? Yeah, I think he's just lying. I think you're right about that. We got Jia Zhang. He's been a member for 19 months. Woo, woo. That is over 2 babies. That's a lot. Thank you, Jia, for being a member for 19 months. How fun. Says, should investigate Pelosi as she probably hired Ray. Yeah, maybe she did. Maybe they were all in on it together. I don't know, but certainly there's more to both of the stories. MAGA Hat Stays says, the state of emergency to get federal funds to house and care for, not to depart, saying the feds are facilitating it. 7,000 people a day. It's insane. It's a lot of people. And yeah, I think the idea is right. They kind of want to break the system. They want to buckle the system so that everything fails. So they have to come back with a mass amnesty plan. And then everybody just clamors for a government solution because things have gotten so bad, because they've caused them to become so bad. Thank you, MAGA Hat. We got Jack Mack in the house. Says, just me and my dog driving from Texas to Michigan today. That's a nice trek, Jack Mack. Your stream helped pass the time. Thanks. P.S. Pelosi is the queen of liars. Yes, Jack, no doubt about that. Did you hear her just lie through her mask right to us? She lied through her teeth and her mask. Right to us. Son called her 3 times and she just lied. Very, very inappropriate, very rude. I hope you're driving safely. Shout out to Jack Mack and your puppy. Hopefully you have a very smooth sailing from Texas to Michigan and you enjoy your time there. We got Not Brandon. Says, after party, we hit in the hotel lobby. Hunter will be there with OTC drugs for the group. Yeah, you got to be careful with Hunter's drugs. You got to be careful. You don't know where that guy gets them from. He's traveling all over the world. He's, you got to be careful with drugs in general. This is not medical advice. Adesia's here, says, happy birthday, Joey. Man, thank you, Adesia. We're going to go and celebrate. I still have a couple presents to wrap for the guy. And it's going to be pizza and wings. And he's going to have a bunch of friends there. It's going to be madness. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Knox Bierman is also saying the same thing. Happiest of B-days to Joey. Thank you for that, Knox Bierman. Yeah, we'll have to maybe post a video when we're over there. They're always fun celebrations, and he's going to have a lot of presents, and it's going to be fun. So let's see what's going on over on X. And check in with our friends over here. We're a little early today. 4 viewers. Okay, 4 viewers. All right. It's respectable. We're early, so, you know, it makes sense. Hey, Vientikis is sharing this. I don't know what this is, really, but it looks kind of cool, actually. It kind of makes Garland look kind of cool. I don't know if that's what the intent was. Is that like a monstrous character? I don't know. Michael Allen says, Rob, you're awesome and your hard work. Thank you, Michael Allen. Thanks for being here. And Raven Madness shared this link from DC Drano. Let's see what DC Drano said today. Says, breaking, House Financial Service Committee passes a bill to ban the Feds, the Federal Reserve, from creating a CBDC. This is a huge step forward. Wow. That's interesting. So that would have to go through the full House and then through the Senate. We'll see if that happens, but it is a good first step. Stofers is here, says, but, he was Trump appointed. I wish I had $1 for every time I hear Trump appointed. I'd be richer than the Bidens. And Newton Leroy says, watching now, love your insight and wicked humor. Thank you, Newton Leroy. I appreciate you. And okay, my friends, that was it over on the X. And so we are a little bit early today. And so we are going to wrap it up. We had a couple of very nice birthday wishes come in from our friends on Locals. Thank you, guys. Pizza party for Joey sounds better than my idea. Happy birthday, Joey. Man, that's super nice. Thank you, Not Brandon, for sending that one in. I see the Rubos are sending one in. And GSD Lady is sending one in. And so I appreciate you guys for sending that love in for my brother Jojo. And let's pull this one up real fast. We've got a nice puppy to share. We'll share the puppy since, you know, looks like a handsome fella or lady. Let's see what we've got over on Locals. Joey's Pizza. I think it's simple pepperoni. Hey, look at that. Happy birthday to Joe. Thank you for that. Look at that handsome boy. Very nice. Thank you for sending that one in. So that's over on Locals. And the Rubos say, cake. Sent a tip and B-Day wishes earlier. Sending them again. Thanks, Rubos, for sending 2 of them in over to Joey. So, my friends, that's where we're going. We're going over to Locals. Our friends on YouTube, join us on Telegram. Grab the Telegram link in the community tab section on YouTube, and we'll see you over in the after party, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do want to send you back over to fieldofgreens.com so you can get your real organic superfood, get healthy, and you can save 15% off with code Robert when you check out. Also, want to say thanks to our mods and our meme smiths who mod down the fort for us here and keep things nice and orderly. We got John McGarvey, our friend Donut Mind Me, Dog Digger, Janek909, our friend John Allen, Zach Nichols, Beyond Geo, Zulu's here, Ronnie Cole, Playin' Hooky, Just Cause, K-Bean, and the Anticus Prime, all in the house. We also want to shout out our meme smiths, our friends Geegum, Nathan N810, Sleepy Dog Lee. We appreciate everybody who helps put this show together. We're grateful for you guys. And so that is it for us. We are wrapping up with our after party for members only. We hope to see you there. But if not, well, we're going to be back here tomorrow. It's going to be Thursday already. Oh my goodness, it's going to be Thursday. And so there's going to be a lot to attend to, and we hope to see you here. We've got new members who are joining us. Dolphin Fan bringing in Forbidden Ruin, CeeLo, Dead Fish Cheese Spread, oh gosh, and P-Dub Designs along with Julius VC, all coming in, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man. And thank you, Dolphin, for bringing in our new members, and welcome aboard, new members. But that is it for us, my friends. So we will be back here tomorrow at the regular time on Thursday to get into it all again. And I hope to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.